Hey there, welcome to Generations Wealth Talk, and I am Todd Watley, here with my co-host Ian Weinder. Hey man, how's it going?
Hey Todd, how are you?
I'm excited about today's show. We threw around some topics and we said, hey, let's just kind of do a summary of a lot of things that are kind of bugging us.
Kind of a mashup, a little rant mashup here today.
A little rant mashup. Back when we did the radio show, we would, some days we would just talk about stuff, rant about a few things. And so today the topic is a phrase that I came up with, I don't know when I did.
It was on the radio show.
I think it was on the radio show. And the phrase is, save a buck, lose a fortune. And we see that so many times. I see it as an estate planning attorney. I see people who download things off the internet, and it's cheap, and it doesn't cost much to do that. But man, so many things can go wrong, and people are thinking, well, you're just trying to get people to come see it. Well, I am, but it's because you're going to miss something. And I've done this thousands of times, and you do it once, and I love doing meetings when I bring stuff up and they're like, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. And I'm like, that's why you come to see me, because there are so many areas people can mess up on, and it can truly cause you to lose a fortune.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with a couple of situations right now that if we can't get stuff fixed the way it needs to be, that will end up being the case for these folks, you know. And so there's so much to talk about here, and I think it's fun that we start with the fact that I'm pretty frugal as a person and a financial planner. Sometimes Todd, is a little bit mean to me about it, but just kidding. But it's very important to me to be efficient with money, and so there are things that I DIY that I do myself. Sure. My dental work, my haircuts.
Dental work?
Yeah, I do my own dental.
No, you don't.
I mostly do. This is true. Yeah. I can't believe I hadn't told you this.
No.
Yeah. It's just like I can do most of it myself. And so I hope that you're chuckling a little bit as we're talking. That's actually true. I do my own, and you can see the value of that work.
I don't like pain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't like
Move
pain.
on.
I don't like pain either. Sorry. If you're a dentist, email and yell at us, but or offer us a coupon. But I bring this up to say, one, to just joke a little bit and bring a tiny bit of humor into this, but two, to say there's truth to the idea that you get what you pay for, and there are some areas where I think it makes sense and it's okay to do it yourself, and there's other areas where we want to encourage you to think twice about that, or measure twice before you do that. Yeah. And so here's how we think about it. Things that are low risk things that are expensive, maybe do that yourself.
Sure.
But if it's a high risk thing, maybe consider hiring that out. The example that I give, and these are a little bit silly, but I think they're true. Tires, not really something you want to DIY or cheap out on, frankly.
Sure. Yeah.
And why is that?
Yeah.
Because you might save a couple $100, but it might cost, frankly, everything.
Yeah,
if you get that wrong, So that's one. The other one, we used to joke about this during 2020 COVID, was toilet paper. I didn't tell Todd we were going to do this today, but don't skim out on some of the things that are important to you.
Sure.
But joking aside, things that involve all of your money that you've saved for your entire life, that's probably worth paying a little bit extra to make sure that you don't have any problems.
Sure. And I think one of the biggest things I see is in Arkansas, you don't want to go through probate. Okay, probate is the process of getting something unstuck from a dead person's name. Okay, and people think, well, I went to an attorney and I said I want to do my estate, and that attorney gave them a last will and testament. Okay. Well, a last will and testament is what tells the judge what to do with your stuff as you go through probate.
It's like a dear judge letter.
Yeah, dear judge, please do this. And probate is expensive. You're going to lose between 5 and 10% of your estate going through probate. It's a year after you die before people get their stuff, and it's public knowledge. And just one of the biggest things is people think, okay, I'm going to do an estate. And I get ads on Facebook all the time about, hey, do your own estate plan, here's a will package, blah, blah, blah. And people don't understand that you're going to go through probate and you're going to lose a substantial amount of money. And you can avoid probate very simply. Simply make sure that everything that you have is payable on death to someone. Okay, that's a way to avoid
How much
probate.
does that cost, Todd?
It's free at the bank. You just go tell them at the bank to do it. Or if we do a deed, it's $500, okay? And so you do a deed that says, at my death, this house goes to these people, and it just automatically happens. It just happens. And so that's a way that I see people save a buck. They don't want to spend a few hundred or, if you did a trust, it's a few $1,000s, but yeah, it's a few $1,000s now to save, not going through probate, which is going to cost, if you can get through probate for less than $5,000, it's a very simple, it's going to be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, but it's money that the family thinks going to be gone anyway, and you're dead, and so therefore it just happens.
It's amazing to me, and this is a behavioral thing, which we could spend time on, but that feels like a future problem. And so it's easy to just go, oh, well, that's a future problem, and the bill for that is not right in front of you, and so it's easy to go, okay, we'll just worry about that then. Yeah. Where no matter what, one of the things I like about working with you, no matter what we recommend for someone, we personalize everything, period, end of conversation.
Right.
There's no, and the reason for that is because if we give advice that is free, meaning avoiding probate, that's free. That's very generalized.
Sure.
Okay. That doesn't understand all the nuance of your situation. But if we're giving personalized advice, it costs more. But it's personalized to you, but it is always the least expensive way to accomplish it. Every single time. Yeah. There's never a situation where we're telling you to do what's more expensive.
Yeah.
And in a technical sense, by law, we're held to that standard.
Sure. Yeah.
It makes our life kind of easy. But I think that's something that's really important for folks to think about is the default option or the cost of not doing anything is more expensive.
Absolutely.
Always. And so unfortunately, the fence is not neutral ground. If you're on the fence, it's going to cost more. You're going through probate.
Yeah.
So you've got to take action and get that done.
Yeah. The other thing that people don't think about is, well, let's talk about real quick why, some people are like, well, why would I spend all that money for a trust? Well, a trust allows you to do things that are special, and I call it complications in your distribution plan. You want to do something special. You don't want to just leave it to your children. You want to put guardrails around that money. You want to make sure that that money is protected if they go through bankruptcy, divorce, or lawsuit. Payable on death, or the beneficiary plan doesn't protect that money. Some people don't care. That's fine. If you don't care, it's very cheap to just name your kids as the beneficiary. It's theirs. Move on. Be done with it. But if you want some protections, if you want unequal distributions, if you want to leave money to a minor child, leave money to a minor child outright and see how expensive that gets. It's extremely expensive because there's a guardianship and there's annual accountings, and then on that kid's 18th birthday, they get their money. Not a good idea, okay? And so with the trust...
But it's cheaper.
But it's cheap.
It feels cheaper. It's cheaper today. It's not cheaper in the long run.
Right. It's just crazy. And so so a trust allows us to do some creative things. Tell me what you would love to see happen at your death, and we can do a trust, and that's just what happens, okay?
So and I think, in those situations where protecting against bankruptcy, divorce, and lawsuit, if you can get that, let's say it even costs, and this is not the cost, but I'm just pulling a number out of thin air. Let's say it costs $10,000 to protect $100,000. Yeah. That's a really good ROI.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
How much more if it's $300, $400, $500 million? I mean, that's an incredible ROI on that.
Yeah,
and the ability to protect that money, I mean, that's a well-written check, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I want to just reframe this idea that way. It's like, this isn't a cost. This is an investment in making sure that you get what you want to happen the right way.
Let's talk about financial stuff.
Let me make one more estate planning point, though, before we do.
Okay.
And it will segue into financial stuff. You need to work with specialists. I reviewed a trust this week, and I brought you into it because it made me grumpy. And the individual had just had this trust prepared like 3 weeks ago. This is not an exaggeration. I'm sure the attorney is a nice person. I'm sure they're nice. I'm sure they talk a great game. The binder was beautiful. We looked it up. It's like a $45 binder. I mean, it was really, really nice.
True. Yeah.
And the trust was basically useless. It did nothing for
bad.
This person.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst ones that I've seen in the past year or two. And they, in this particular case, this person's spouse is declining mentally. And they had a power of attorney, which we could spend all kinds of time on. The only agent they had under their power of attorney was their spouse, who is declining physically and mentally.
Yeah. And so you can't do it. There is no power of attorney.
There's no other, and so we're going, and I asked, okay, or it came up in the conversation, hey, how much did this cost? And they threw out a price that was less than what some of the work that, I'll just be transparent, Todd.
It was much cheaper.
And the tragedy is they're going to have it redone, and it's going to cost them more money because they didn't work with a specialist and tried to save a couple bucks by working with someone who doesn't specialize in this. And that extends to the financial world very, very clearly as well. It's a situation where, unfortunately, legal and financial matters are much more complicated today than they've ever been. And oh, by the way, the rules are probably going to change again this year.
Sure, of course.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah.
So what's the answer? Do we just stick our head in the sand and go, you know what, hopefully this isn't a problem?
Let's just see what happens.
For some people, that's what they do. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Good luck. It's only everything that you've worked for and saved. But hope is not a strategy, is what we tend to say.
Right.
We hope everything works out. That's not one that we can defend, frankly. But aligning your tax, your legal, and your financial strategy is really, really important, because estate planning is there's a lot of financial matters that are interconnected there, and I think sometimes that gets left out.
Well, income, taxes, growth, inflation. I mean, there's so many things that go into your portfolio. And do you know all of those things? Doing it by yourself? Sure, there's a lot of tools out there. You can go onto Schwab or Fidelity and you can pick your own stocks and you can do, but man, there's just so much that goes into it. I've seen it personally. I think I'm a smart guy and I think I understand finances, but once I really got into it, I was like, good Lord, there's a lot that plays into this, and trying to see the future. If your future take is based on what you see on MSNBC or CNBC or whatever, the quote financial networks, they're out there selling advertising.
That's what they're doing. Yep.
And they're selling the hot topic, the thing that's going to make you mad or get you riled up.
You got to keep tuning in to know what's going to happen, to know what you're going to do.
Yeah, and all of that is just, someone like you, this is your job. This is what you do all day, every day, and you're looking out there, but primarily you're choosing a plan that's not real subject to the whims of the market or government or whatever. It's just...
Well, what's interesting is sometimes we have these conversations. I had a conversation with someone last week. They're in retirement. They have an advisor they've worked with for a while. And they said, well, what are we going to do if this, that, or the other happens? I was talking about the way that we construct portfolios, the way we think about investing. And they were like, what are we going to do if this happens or that happens? And I said, and it kind of surprised them. I said, we're going to stick with the plan. Like, we don't, if you think that I know what's going to happen in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years, and I can time that and predict that, we're having the wrong conversation.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to build a portfolio that works in every season, and one that we're going to maintain, that we understand why we own it, and we understand, pretty well what it's going to do. We don't need to do 1,000% a year. We need to do enough to pay for your goals and not take too much risk.
Yeah.
And that's a different conversation than most people have. But once you understand that that's how we buy your time back, so you're not wondering what's going to happen, how this and that and the other thing is going to affect your plan, you have a plan that you understand, and that we're not going to try to time the market or pick what's going to work and what's not. You can pay less attention to that stuff and enjoy your life quite a bit more.
Well, tell people the statistic that I find most amazing, and I did not realize this until I was really in it, and it's shocking.
So this is a fun one. So we've had really interesting in the last 3 or 4 years. We've had really interesting markets, and if you've been investing for a long time, it might remind you of the early 2000s or the tech bubble, where during the tech bubble, and they redid this in the last few years, there was a fund that you could invest in, and the stocks were picked by monkeys that were throwing a dart. You can look this up. That were throwing darts at the wall, and it did very well. Now, was it the monkeys, or was it just the fact that everything was overvalued? So, you can make your own decision about that. But we're in a period right now where stock trading has become really hot again. Lots of apps like Robinhood and different things have, and you have to wonder why they've made this so easy. What's in it for them? That's a whole other conversation.
Sure.
But folks who have not gone through a number of cycles or understand what happens when it's not so easy, they tend to get a little bit. There's a technical term, it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where they're on this curve of learning, and they haven't taken the plunge into, there might be a few things that I don't know. I don't know what I don't know.
Sure.
I had a conversation with someone, engineer, young person around my age, and very confident about managing his own investments, and he'd been trading stocks for about a year. This is a quote, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I've been trading stocks for about a year, and my ROI has been between 20 and 40%. That's what he said to me. And so it's like, so number one, we're not exactly sure what we've done. We don't have a good metric for tracking, and that's not a very long time period to be.
And most people made between 20 and 40%
doing
last
that,
year.
And so we talked about it a little bit, but the statistic that you wanted to talk about was over the long run, the professionals. We're talking about hedge funds and the people that have more money, more technology, they have more information faster than you can get it, and they pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for it. On average, they're about 50-50. So let me translate that.
Sure.
It's a coin toss.
Yeah, it's a coin toss at best.
At best. And by the way, they can do it faster than you, and they have more money and information than you do. So for a short period of time, you might be successful with that, but in the long run, it's a losing game. It's absolutely a losing game. And so why don't we put our energy towards what we can control? It's because we can't control all the variables. So why don't we focus on what we can control, how much you're saving, how much risk you're taking in your portfolio, how you're approaching taxes, what the rest of your team looks like. You can control those things. And creating a spending plan that you can fund. If we focus on what we can control, we have much better outcomes.
Yeah.
So that's just a little teaser on some of the, and I think, I don't want there to be market correction, but a lot of stuff is overvalued right now, and I don't think we should be surprised if we see some markets that are a little different over the next couple of years.
Yeah, things are weird. We're
a little dynamic.
Yeah, we're filming this the late half of January, and things have just changed. Administration's just changed. I mean, there's going to be some changes. There's going to be. Who knows? But we don't know what's going to happen, and so the other thing the third thing I want to talk about is a very common document that everybody thinks, oh yeah, I've done that, it's fine, I don't have to worry about it anymore, and that is a power of attorney. Okay, the lowly power of attorney. I think that is the most important document you can do for a lot of reasons. And the reason it falls under this save a buck, lose a fortune is because many times when people go to an attorney or download this off the internet, if you use the Arkansas statutory power of attorney, it's a form that has some check boxes you can fill out that are pretty standard, and in fact you can just say check this box and all of these powers allow. But then there's 7 what I call superpowers. It's the next paragraph, and some attorneys take that out. They don't even offer it to their clients.
We reviewed one this last week. They took it out.
They just took it out. And it's those
Just
superpowers that make this worth its while. And without checking some of those superpowers, you will lose everything that you have in light of long-term care. Whereas if you had checked those, I can save almost everything. Okay, let me say that again, that if you don't check a box, you come to me saying, hey, mom's going into the nursing home, she has $300,000, can I protect everything? Well, we can't protect everything, but with the right powers, I can protect half, 60, maybe 70%. So that's $200,000 of the $300,000.
That's more than zero.
That's more than zero.
For the folks keeping track at home.
Right. But if mom can't make those checks, write those, or do the things we need them to do because she's in a nursing home and incapacitated, I need the agent to do that. So therefore, I have to go to the power of attorney and see what powers the agent has. And so many times I go through and see those superpowers are gone, and one of those superpowers is gifting. If I were to ask you, do you want to do a power of attorney where you name your daughter as your power of attorney and she can give away everything that you have? You're like, no, I don't want to do that. Nah, you don't until you do. And that is, if you go into the nursing home, the way that I can protect your assets is to give them away, okay? And so I can protect, under the rules, I tell Medicaid everything we're doing, I can protect somewhere between 50 and 70%, but if that one box is not checked, sorry ma'am, I can't help you, you've got to pay all of her money to the nursing home.
It's kind of like insurance, a little bit, you know. The people who want insurance are the ones who need it and they can't get it therefore at that time. You know, everyone hates life insurance until it pays.
Until it pays.
Yeah, you know, and so it's one of those things where it's not fun to deal with, it's not fun to do it, and it's boring and useless until the one moment that it matters the most. And so these are the areas, these are the situations where making sure that you've got it right, even paying a little bit more. You know, we're not saying that you have to, you know, to throw caution to the wind and not be wise about the way that you think about this, but get good value for what you're paying.
Yeah.
And it is worth every penny to do that.
Yeah. The other thing I want to bring up with the power of attorney is if you do a power of attorney, it avoids a guardianship. And you want to see me get on a soapbox and start screaming and yelling is the overutilization of guardianships. And the perception is, oh, mom's been diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever, so we just need to go get a guardianship over her. No, that is not the standard. Even with a diagnosis of dementia, with some Alzheimer's, you can still do a power of attorney. They can still sign a power of attorney.
True.
A guardianship is making sure someone out there can handle your affairs, okay? With a guardianship, it's a court thing. You go to court, a judge picks who it's going to be, then a judge gives the power to the person to do those things. And I can do that with a power of attorney. A power of attorney does the very same thing for much cheaper, keeps us out of court, and gives us flexibility to do the Medicaid planning, okay? When we get to a married couple, I just talked about a single person, we can protect 50, 60, 70%. With a married couple, I can protect almost 100% of the money when that person's going into the nursing home. If we have power of attorney, if we can do things with this money, and typically that is required under the power of attorney for us to do it. And if your power of attorney doesn't allow us to do it, and that's the truly sad cases is we have a spouse not in the nursing home who needs money, and we have one spouse going into the nursing home, and it costs $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month. And I can get all of this money to the spouse if we have a power of attorney. Under a guardianship, so far, judges have not been very willing to let us do that shift of money from the person going into the nursing home to the other spouse under a guardianship, but we can do it with a power of attorney.
What might that be, Todd?
Well, the law says that the assets of the person who now has a guardianship over them shall be used for them. Okay, and that kind of makes sense. But if we can get them the very same care get them in a nursing home, get it paid for, and have the spouse not in the nursing home have all the assets, why not do that? But it takes some transferring, and under the guardianship law, we can't do that. And unless a judge allows us, and they're just not very willing to do that.
Because they would like the money to go to the state to,
Well,
sorry.
maybe.
They may not care about that.
Yeah,
but
they just don't care, but they just know the law says this, and they don't care that we could have protected everything. And it's just, it's so frustrating that I see people, I'm like you, not as bad as you as being frugal, but I like to save a buck, okay? But I don't want to lose a fortune. And I see people do this all the time where they think, well, I can save money if I do this or that, but you just don't understand how you're going to lose almost everything that you
These
have.
aren't the areas to save money in.
Yeah.
You know, we can save money in other places, and that's fine. You know, the other side of that coin is, you know, what are you saving that money for? What's it for? What's the purpose of that money? You know, that's what when folks come in, we talk to them, we go, what's the purpose of this money? And it's really interesting because typically no one's ever asked them that question.
I've never thought about that until I met you, and I thought, that's a good idea. You know, what is this money for? Is it to pass on to the kids? Is it to retire? Is it to go to Germany? Is it, you know, what's the purpose of the money?
That tells us how we deal with it. And if it is to go to the kids and we don't protect it in this way, then we're not doing a good job in taking care of our clients.
Right.
You know, and so we care about this stuff, and we are a little bit frugal about this because our job is to protect our clients and to play by the rules. We didn't make the rules. You didn't make most of them. You kind of made some of them, but we didn't make the rules. But our job is to help our clients leverage them to get what they want and to save their money. But if the documents aren't right, and if you don't let us help with the planning, we're limited. You know, we got a hand tied behind our back on that.
Sure.
In a lot of cases.
Well, and what we have built with Generations Legal Group and Generations Wealth Partners is we have come under one roof. We're not partners in the legal stuff. We are partners on the financial stuff, but in the law office, your office is in my office, and what is so nice is people can come in, and rather than having to call in and schedule with the attorney and take notes there, and then, or call and say, hey, can you meet with my financial advisor? Well, those two, number one, they probably don't like to talk to each other because they have different goals and schemes, and you know.
Sorry, I'm trying not to laugh, but I'm trying to think of a time when I've ever gotten, you know, someone's advisor to. It just doesn't happen.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so, number one, them wanting to meet together because the advisor's like, save, you know, build money, whereas the attorney, the Medicaid attorney is like, oh, we've got to cash this in, and do things. And so they're at odds. But then even if they weren't at odds, trying to line up their schedule to meet at the same time at the same table is almost impossible. We do it every day, okay? You call the office, you say, hey, I want to meet with Todd and Ian. Fine. We have time next week. We can do that. And so both of us are sitting at the table with you, and we can solve a whole lot of problems in an hour that would probably take you a year, 2 years, trying to go to your lawyer, take notes, and then go to the financial advisor and say, okay, the attorney said this, and you're saying, okay, well, let me go back to the attorney. It's just back and forth and back and forth. That's crazy. Let's sit down at one table and let's just solve this problem.
And what's your time worth?
Yeah.
You know, when we talk about expenses and fees, what is your time worth? You know, and that's a whole other fun exercise.
That's a whole nother thing.
You know, I think, you know, kind of a parting thought here that's interesting to me. As we were talking, I was reflecting and thinking about, you know, I work with a lot of folks who will DIY certain parts of their plan, and that's fine. But I'm thinking through the folks that I've worked with who've either become clients or haven't become clients. I mean, I see hundreds, if not thousands, of portfolios and scenarios, and I can think of one instance
that it was done well.
That it was, particularly investing, that it was done pretty well. And even in that instance, it's actually a client of mine. I am helping them on quite a few different things.
Okay.
But there's never been a scenario that we've reviewed that there's no opportunity for improvement.
Wow. So we have spent a lot of money to get information out there. We're on YouTube. Search Ian Weinder, Todd Watley, Generations Wealth for Generations, Generations Legal Group website, Wealth for Generations website. There are lots of places to get information.
Yes. Get educated.
Yeah. Thank y'all very much, and we will see you next time, okay? Thanks.